Tom's Cape Town is celebrating their first birthday, and we have a little giveaway just for you to join in the birthday fun. Tom's is giving away 2 pairs of KRK Rocket Studio monitors, and all you have to do to enter is go into either the Cape Town or Belleville store. Find out which nook or cranny these studio monitors are tucked away in, and take a pic of yourself with them. Then post it to your social media and be sure to include the hashtags Rocket in Red and Happy 1 Year Tom's Cape Town, and tag either at Tom's Cape Town or at Tom's Belleville. And while you're at it, head on over to Tom's Cape Town or Belleville's social media pages to find out more about all their epic birthday specials. Tom's, the only music store. All deals and specials are exclusive to the Cape Town and Belleville stores. Happy hunting! Welcome to Texx Talks. I am Texx, and today I am talking to a rapper and producer who has held the attention of audiences in South Africa and around the world for almost a decade with his versatile discography and consistent touring schedule. Establishing himself as a commercial heavyweight early on in his career, it's been his darker and less radio-friendly work that set him apart over the last few years, with his latest singles being some of his best work to date. And when his dark electronic hip-hop beats woven seamlessly with intricate raps and melodic hooks combine with immense crowds that normally can't get enough of him, you get performances that leave his contemporaries in the dust, pretty much. I am, of course, talking about Mike Zietsman, better known to us as PHFAT. Mike, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you? I've never had my bio split up like that before. That was weird to listen to it spoken out loud.
And half of it I wrote anyway, so it's actually pretty cool to say out loud. But how's Cape Town? I hear it's a bit rainy and cold right now.
Yeah, it's been pretty horrible here, but I actually like bad weather because it makes it feel nicer to be in a studio working on songs, because it feels like you're not missing out on a good day, because a good day in Cape Town will ruin a day of work like no problem.
Oh my gosh, especially
like
in hot day.
Do you know what I'm saying though? Seriously though, because good weather is like the enemy of music, because you want to do things in nature, or at least I do.
Yeah, because you're very outdoorsy.
Yeah, I've never been much other than a low-key jock anyways. It's like a very existential sports nerd that doesn't watch team sport.
I feel like I'm going to find out a lot of things about you in this podcast. But you know that while I was prepping for this, I realized that like you and I, we've known each other for almost 10 years now, which is crazy. And I was thinking about the first time, like if I can remember the first time that I met you, and I realized that it was the launch of your first music video for the Big Five.
Now everybody get down like animals, animals, animals. We love animals.
Oh, wow.
And I don't really remember much about that evening because
I think that's because we managed to get Olmaker to give us like everything we needed to make everyone forget.
Yeah, and then I remember that my friend Sonia, who you know very well, who now works for Fokoflago, back in the day was working for Sailor Jerry as well. And she also like dropped off a couple of bottles of rum. And back in the day, that's like all that I was drinking. So I mean, there was a lot of rum consumed on that night, a lot of tequila. But I do remember the vibe, and I do remember it being but quite a rad evening. But when you think back to like 2011, I think that it was, to the early days of PHFAT, what are your general feelings towards those early days?
PHFAT was going kind of a long time before that. It was just like, it was probably like 2007, 2008 was when I was like trying to learn to make music. I was like, I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I knew that I wanted to make music. And myself and Notch grew up together, and he was working as a chef down the road, and on his lunch break he'd come hang out. And I was upstairs eating, and I came down, and he had this like beat, and it did a rap over it. I can still like remember part of the rap, and I remember it was like the first time we had like a vision for where a song would go, and we were like, dude, imagine we were at like the Jam or what was it, Mercury Live. I can't remember when that change happened. Imagine we're at like Mercury Live and the place is packed and we started with this song and we walk out at this moment and it drops. And that was like, okay, cool. We need to do that one day. And that was like kind of the start of us wanting to like actually take it somewhere and go live with it. We're like, this is good enough to show people. It wasn't, it was awful, but it was like, that was the kind of moment it clicked in. And I do have like some fun nostalgic like moments for that, because I'd been making music with my homie Alex van Rensburg for a while before that. But like, if I think back to it, it's actually like largely just feeling like you're trying to drive a car but you don't know what the controls do. It's just super like super like oddly frustrating. Like it's like there's this big gap between how you know you should sound and how you do sound, and it's like it's just a whole bunch of hard work in the middle. So I mean, it was like, because it was weird, any good song that we made back then felt like a mistake. We didn't know what we were doing, or at least I didn't know what I was doing. I can't speak for Notch, but it was like we had no clue what was going on actually. But there's also something super adventurous about that. It's like you never know what's going to come out that day. And yeah, I mean, I think back to it, but like especially lately, I've very much been looking towards the future.
I'm gonna force you to look backwards, though. I'm sorry, even
Go
though
for
you.
it.
But I mean, you know, essentially, PHFAT's been you since Notch left to do his own thing in like 2016, and then before that, you and Notch parted ways with Disco in 2013. And every time somebody left, willingly or unwillingly, how did the dynamic of PHFAT change?
I mean, I don't know. How do you describe that? Every time somebody left, how did the dynamic change? Well, I mean, it changed it changed kind of fundamentally. Obviously, like the main dynamic that changes is the stage dynamic, really. Because writing is largely, when you write, there might be people in the room, but and it is like a interactive process, but you can do it completely alone. And we'd all done that completely alone multiple times. So to go to doing it completely alone was no different. But it's a big difference going from 2 rappers to 1 rapper on stage. It's a big difference from having, like, at that point in 2016, like the first time I walked on stage with Luke, it had been like, I don't know, what, like 8 years or something like that with Notch behind me on stage, and we had like a whole decorum and we knew how to communicate without speaking to each other and stuff. So to like relearn it is obviously like quite a major thing. And then obviously like relearning the language of making music was like one of the major differences when Notch moved on was like, what's the word? Like learning to speak music to people who weren't Notch, because everybody has different language for how they like get from A to B in the studio. Like some people speak in like very weird vaguities, and then like jazz musicians speak in jazz code. Do you know what I mean? So I had to like relearn how to speak music to people, because I'd basically been speaking with one person my whole career.
So the dynamic changed quite fundamentally.
Yeah, big time.
Okay. And now that it's just you, it's just you in like...
I mean, I guess the essence of me and what I was going for has never really changed that much, though. Now that it's just me?
Well, I mean, you know, you're in complete creative control of everything that you do now. Like, or you know, you don't... I mean, for me, like, I'm not necessarily the best team player in the world, but I like working with other people because it's cool to bounce ideas off them. And working all alone, you know, you're maybe a bit isolated, and you know, you don't have that. Do you work better with people, or do you feel like now in your solo capacity the ship runs smoother?
I mean, the decision making's quicker when there's one person. There's less negotiation. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's better all the time. Like it can help to have people to bounce stuff off of. In terms of writing, like that's always such a mystery. Like the writing process is like forever going to be mysterious to me. You never know what the ingredients are to have a good writing session. Though lately I've definitely been preferring having more people around. Like I was sharing a studio with Greg Abrams for a while recently, and it was like the shared space meant that there was just more people around, and it was actually amazing to have people to bounce stuff off of, as opposed to like just sitting alone with my dark thoughts the whole time. But one of the things that working with other people always requires, or at least that I've always been quite careful when I'm working with other people, is like there's always a certain amount of patience that you need. So like if somebody has an idea, you can't necessarily visualize or like hear the idea in your mind's ear. You have to let them, or your mind's eye, or your mind's ear. I don't know what the word, but you have to let them like explore the idea by themselves, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so like often somebody will be doing something, you see no pathway to success, and you just have to keep your mouth shut and like let them do it. And 80% of the time it won't go anywhere, and then like 20% of the time something magical will happen that you completely didn't expect. So it's like having like the more people you bring in, the more variables you bring in, and that gets like exponentially more complex. 2 people working in a studio is like infinitely less complex than 3 people, which is infinitely less like complex than 4 people working in a room. But I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't know if I've even really framed your question right. I'm just thinking about it in terms of writing. But having people around is absolutely something that I need, because I'm a, what's the word? I'm like an extrovert. So I need people around. Otherwise, I become like an unwatered houseplant.
Oh my God. So how difficult was lockdown for you?
It was the worst thing in the whole world ever. I hated it so much. And then, I hated it a lot while my girlfriend was overseas, and she came back. Now I'm feeling much better. But it was just like not having people to bounce stuff off of, not seeing the homies, not like, even like the worst was actually not being able to run around outside. Because I do this, like I have this trick where I trick myself. If I've spent if I completely oversharing on a podcast, if I have like a bad week where I'm spending the whole time by myself in the studio, it's not necessarily a bad week, but if I'm spending too much time alone, I'll trick myself into believing that I've seen people by going for a run on the promenade. I'll be like, yes, hello, fellow normal people, how are you? Yes, I too am normal. And I just like run past them quietly with my headphones in. But we couldn't even do that, so I was feeling flipping horrible. I was miserable.
Okay, well, you know what? Next time, you haven't been out for a while and you trick yourself by going for a run on the prom, chances are 9 out of 10 you're going to run past Jonathan Ings, the producer of this podcast.
I've seen Jonathan Ings on the prom. I think that might be the reason this podcast is happening. I'm not sure though.
This podcast is happening because we all share a collective love for you. You know that, though.
Aw.
So I want to talk about the music that you've been putting out lately, because, like I said in the intro, it's some of your best work ever, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your butt. Like, I really do mean it. And you're welcome. And the Sex, Love, Heartbreak EP specifically that you released last year, you dive very deeply into each one of those themes, and it's very personal, but to me it's also quite like cathartic. And I think I told you this when I came to visit you at your home studio in Hout Bay just before the EP came out, and you played me some of the tracks. No, you played me all of the tracks, and I was going through some shit with this dude at the time, but the EP really like hit home for me. And I feel like, did you pour personal experience into that, because it seemed very close to home?
So stuff like that, like, it's like you can't really. I mean, I can't say whether or not I can disconnect myself from my circumstances. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I was like, but stuff like that is like. The stuff that comes through in that track is often the result of conversations, or let me think how to answer that properly. Like, one of my obsessions is I have like a weird obsession with the various branches of psychology, but one of the things that I've always been like fascinated by is like I think that they're called the Barnum statements. I could be wrong. Wait, let me Google. I'm not going to Google that now. But I think they're called the Barnum statements. It's like 13 statements that apply to everyone, and they're completely vague. But whenever people read them, they feel completely understood, or like they can, depending on the person, obviously. It's like, and it's one of the things that I've been concerned about my whole career writing songs, is like, how specific is a song? Because if a song's too specific, it won't like ring home. So it can't be drawn too much from personal experience, if you think about it like that. Because if I was out here going like, oh, Sarah, I miss you so much. Like, do you know what I mean? It would be like, who the fuck is Sarah? And like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't get, like, if you get too specific, you lose universality.
Okay, so I just Googled it, and yeah, the Barnum effect, you're correct.
Yeah, it's like what the whole I'm gonna get beat up because I'm saying this in Cape Town. This is what the whole of astrology is based on. It's like if you keep a statement vague enough, it applies to everyone. Like you're concerned about money, like, oh, you understand me. That's like,
but is that potentially why you don't go too deep into explaining what your songs are about?
I mean, I can explain if people have questions about lines and stuff. I guess I could explain. I think like no, I mean, I don't know. How does one go about describing songs? Like one of the things that if you over describe a song, you can completely kill its magic. It's like if you show somebody how a magic trick works, like it makes the magic trick boring. Do you know what I mean? Like when I go and listen to music, it's very rare that my like analytical brain suspends and I go like, oh my God, this is magical. It feels like I'm in a world that I don't understand. I'm always kind of like analyzing the music and how they did it. I'm constantly asking myself, how did they get there? And then like my favorite, it happens like twice a year. I'll be at a festival or something, though not this year because there's no festivals. But like I'll be standing at a festival and I'll be watching a live act and I'll have absolutely no clue how they're doing it. And I'll just be swept away and I'll stop thinking and I'll just listen to music and it'll be the most blissful moment. And like when you over describe stuff, and that's not to say that I can't describe it, but like when you over describe stuff, you completely like blur the line between artist and listener. And I do think that that's like quite a sacred line.
I was thinking now, like you were saying, you know, you stand, like there have been instances where you're like at a gig and you get swept up in what's going on. You're like, oh my God, how do they do that? Like, have you ever had to stop listening to music or like, how would I phrase this? Like separate yourself from anything that you're listening to at the moment or any external influences to like tap into your own originality and your own creativity before you set out to write something new?
So I go through phases where I'm like, I can't stop listening to brand new music. And then I'll go through phases where I really need music I'm familiar with. And then there'll be times when I can't listen to other people's music. I'm never particularly conscious of it. I find I mean, like, to be quite frank, I find that's absolutely linked to like my basic serotonin levels at the time. If I'm a happy dude, I'm hunting new music and I'm enjoying the shit out of it. If I'm like sad or scared, I'm listening to old familiar music that I recognize from some other era in my life. And if I'm writing, I'm not listening to much of other people's music at all. I'll listen to, like, when I'm doing mixdowns, I'll keep one or two reference songs going, but it'll be like strictly analytical. I won't be like enjoying music at that point, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't like consciously withdraw from listening to music though. Let me think about that. Yeah, like occasionally, if I've been listening to music too much, instead of like blasting my headphones while I run, I'll leave my headphones on my phone at home and just run and listen to, I don't know, the sound of the waves on the prom or the wind in the trees up the mountain. But that's kind of, I guess.
So Cape Townian.
That's my relationship with music, with listening to music, I guess. But then also like but then music is like monumental in my life. I have speakers in every room that I visit regularly and big ones that I can listen to music on properly. Like I've got speakers at home on that I can totally judge a final master on and stuff like that. Like I wake up and put music on. I haven't been able to lately because something fried one of my amplifiers, but it's getting fixed just in case.
Oh my God, what fried it?
So I'm like a complete equipment nerd, right?
Yes.
I found these amps from like the mid 90s or something. I think they were just old, but like I opened it up and there was like burnt resistors and stuff, so I took it off to the tech to get fixed. That's my amplifier story. Sorry, listeners.
What does your haul of gear look like?
I don't know how to answer that. What do you mean? I've got it's.
And
it's
where do you keep
studio.
it? Because I mean, I've been to your studio, and your studio is not big enough for everything that you collect.
No, so there was a phrase. So like my new thing now is if I'm not using a piece of gear, it's got to go.
Okay.
But there was a time. I said it. There was a time where I would just keep synthesizers at friends' houses. So it would be like, I don't have space for this. Keep it at your house. Use it to make music. Do whatever. Just don't break it, please. And
Oh God, Mike's
I'm
at the
not
door
gonna
again with another synth.
I'm not gonna lie. Like there was one or two that I forgot about, and I didn't know who I'd given them to. Like it was getting pretty bad for a while. Like I had way too many synthesizers at a point in like 2012, and then I realized like this is not making me more music. This is just cluttering up other people's houses.
Oh my
So
God.
it did, like, one of the cool things when Narch was around was we could keep synths at his place. So it meant that there was constantly, fresh sounds coming from stuff. Because, like, one of the weird things about the modern age is that everybody's got access to the same tools. So, like, in terms of digital production tools, especially if they sell the 7Cs on the internet and steal them, which most people do. So, except for me, everything's legit, I promise. But one of the reasons I was obsessed with Old Gear is because it sounds different and nobody can get hold of it. So I just had this like big collection of unique sounds that I could give to my friends to have at their houses, and it would often end up coming back to me in some way or another, or it would end up on someone else's cool track. There was something amazing about that. But yeah, I can't remember what we were speaking about.
Oh my gosh. So no, listen, so you were like,
I'm just being fucking gear nerd again.
No, but you asked me if
I promised myself I'd be interesting.
Oh my God. No, but listen, you asked me if you wanted, if I wanted you to explain Dark Dance.
Yeah.
And I don't. But,
I mean, I could explain it to you, but I hope it wouldn't be so that you would understand it.
I know. Oh my God. No, but I do want to talk about, I don't want you to explain it to me, right? But I do want to talk about Catherine, because at the time when you released it, it was so unlike anything that we'd heard from you before. And it had like the makeshift choir and the very anthemic chorus. Yeah. And just before you released it, you spoke a lot about Omri Dahan, who you co-wrote that song with. You spoke to me a lot about it when you were like enthusing about this 18-year-old. I don't know how old he is now.
He's 22 now, I think. He just turned 22, yeah.
Okay. And I mean, he
doesn't like when people speak about his age, though.
God, sorry.
He's like, no, my age doesn't matter. And it doesn't. He's fucking... But yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So I just, like, I wanted to know what the general mood was like in studio when you were writing that alongside him, purely because it's a very special song, and also because before you released it, you spoke so much about how incredible he is.
Yeah. Well, he's like the most bizarre kid. Like he hit me up.
Don't talk about his age.
He hit me up. Kid's the wrong word because he's an adult now. But when he hit me up, he was 17. And he wanted to learn. He was like, dude, I can't remember. We agreed he was going to do some sort of internship or something. He was the most garbage intern in the whole world. Anyway, I found out later on he's dyslexic.
Oh my God.
Anyways, just terrible intern. It was terrible with like all of the weird, like electrically technical stuff. Not the musically technical stuff. Musically he's technical as hell, but like absolutely useless as like a studio intern. Does that make sense? But like we really, really, really got on. And I kept forgetting how young he was because he hadn't been in school for like, I don't know, ages. And he's this like magical dude. He's fucking uniquely talented. And that's what was the mood like? Like he's uniquely talented. And I would always forget that he was like the age that he was at the time. This was 2 years ago. He was like young. I would always forget this, but he was like one of my closest homies at that point. I mean, he still is one of my closest homies. He's in London now. We phone each other and speak to each other all the time. And I can't remember. We were just speaking about it. So we wrote the song like a full year before it came out. Mm-hmm. And I finished it up like, obviously, like that's how songs go. You start them, and then when the deadline comes, you finish them. And that could be 1 week or 1 year. It depends on what's going on. But I can't actually remember what the mood was like in the studio. I just remember, I do remember this. Like we'd been writing a lot at the time, and it was just for fun. And right after we wrote that chorus, we looked at each other, and he said to me, dude, it's not a mistake anymore. We can do this whenever we want to. It was such a cool moment. It was like such an incredible moment to be like, oh my God, we actually kind of know what we're doing in terms of writing songs now. Like we can make something that we appreciate. There's not that there's a formula, but we know the various pathways to a successful song now. To some types of successful song. Like, obviously one never masters music, but like, it was a really, really magical moment. And I remember it was absolutely one of those moments where you completely like forget about time and food and stuff. And we just sat there writing until it was done.
Time and food and stuff.
Does that ever happen to you? When you sit down, so this happens to me all the time, where you sit down and then you get engaged in what you're doing. And often what will happen is I'll wake up, exercise, eat breakfast, then come to the studio. And then like I'll be working and then I'll look up and it'll be like 5 p.m. and I'll be like, fuck, no wonder I feel like I'm going to pass out. I haven't eaten yet. Does that not happen to you?
It only happens to me when I'm like very, very deep in the creative game and I've like put my phone on flight mode and I've like
so this was totally one of those moments where it was just like, oh my God, this is so dope. Like, let's keep going until this is done. Otherwise it might run away, because good ideas sometimes feel as though they're floating through the air and then they're going to flutter off like a wild animal or like a bird. And so while they're there, you have to take lots of pictures of them so that people can hear what it looked like.
I love that so much. What other songs have you written with him?
With we wrote Swades together. We wrote Catherine. We wrote Get Some. There's another one that hasn't been released yet. I'm working on another EP that it's going to go on. Yeah, I think those are the main ones that we wrote together. But we still like bounce tracks off of each other all the time, because he's in London now. Just hustling sessions. This kid is unusually industrious.
I know, that's what you told me when the last time I saw you as well. But he's also written for like Amy Lilly, and I see his name pop up quite a bit. Well,
he's written for Amy Lilly. He wrote with Craig Lucas.
Yeah,
he's on his hustle.
Legit. But then last month you released Whatever You Like, and I can't talk about the song without talking about the video by Paul Ward, because I feel like the two are so beautifully intertwined. How is that song born? And then when did you decide that you wanted to work with Paul on the visuals?
Well, I mean, I've always wanted to work with Paul. But at some point, like, because there's like a shift that happens in a musician's career. Like, when you start out, you're hustling like collaborations, and it's always about the art or whatever. But then once it becomes your career, you can't be kind of operating off of favors, if that makes sense. So it becomes more about like what you can afford and what you can do. And I kind of like, hey, yeah. Well, I mean, not even that. Like, you just like, it's kind of like, hey man, do you want to make a video for my song? It's like, it's not really like respectful of someone's time to just hit them up and be like, hey, make a thing for free. Or like, here's like a tiny fraction of your usual budget. Anyways, and so I completely like stopped hitting people up on like the collaborative tip, because it didn't really, because like what a lot of people do is they'll present something as a collaboration, but it's a way to get like a video for free or whatever. And that wasn't ever really my vibe. So I would hit people up with a budget and see if they were interested. Anyways, I was hanging out with Warren, Paul's homie. We were just shooting some photographs, and he was like, dude, you should really bounce the shit off Paul. And I was like, dude, I can't afford the guy. He's like, dude, just bounce it off of him. And I did. And myself and Greg started this track, and it felt special. And I sent it off to Paul, and I think he found it special. And he was like, dude, let's make a video for it. And I was like, of course, yeah, please. And we bounced around a couple of ideas, but it was always quite vague. And he was like, I've got a strong vision for this. And I just literally took my hands off the wheel. I gave him the final song and said, here you go. It's yours. and I mean, I think he did a pretty flippin', like, I'm really blown away by what he managed to pull off.
Yeah, it's incredible. I think in my review, I called it a deliciously lit slice of visual pie. Honestly, like one of the best videos of the year that I've seen.
Dude's got immaculate taste. And it also, like, it managed to be quite sexy without being super try-hard, which I was so happy about.
But you've also consistently put out great music videos over the years, like the music videos directed by Rob Smith. I mean, he did Keep You Safe and Swades.
Rob's also a dude who's pulled off things with absolutely no budget. Like, that dude blows my mind.
Magician.
Yeah.
But are you, I mean, when it comes to like working with people like Rob, are you at all involved in the creative process at all? Or, I mean,
I know enough to know that, like, at some point you got to take your hands off the wheel when it comes to something that's not in your like sphere of expertise. So I could say I want it to look like X, Y, and Z, but I have no clue how that's achieved because I'm not a videologist. Videographizer. And so like quite often I'll take like a conscious step back and make sure that I'm available to help out with any logistical things, or if there is any creative input that anybody wants, or like, and I'll definitely go over like the concepts with people. But in terms of individual shots, I know enough to know that I could fuck up a whole bunch of hard work by going like, no, yo, that's whack, because I don't know what they're trying to capture. Do you know what I mean? Like, how often, I don't know if you've done music videos before, but quite often you'll see a camera set up and like the way you see the shot in your mind is completely different to how it comes out, because it depends on like so many factors. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not a videographer-sizist. Videologist, yeah. So at some point I do kind of try to take my hands off the wheel. There's obviously a couple hard lines that I've got in my head that I won't really cross. But yeah, with dudes like that, like like the people that I'm working with, I trust completely.
Another aspect of your career that like shows a lot of attention to detail, like your music videos, and probably something that's, I mean, in my opinion at least, like defined your career are your performances. And I've been to my fair share of PHFAT gigs over the years, and you never disappoint. But probably my favorite gig of yours was Opi Kopi in 2015.
Yo, Opi Kopi. Are you ready to kick some fucking dust up for me? Are we ready to get fucking rowdy in this motherfucker? Are you fucking ready? I'm pushing with that calm sleep, visiting your dark, clean, missionary, half sleep.
Because between you and Notch and Inca and Devin on the drums, like it was such a powerhouse set. And it's something that I remember I was standing at the back with Gareth Wilson, and we were like, what? Just looking at each other like, this is crazy. Like how does something like that, like how do you conceptualize
How does something
it?
like that come together?
Yeah, and
so
also how do you rehearse it?
So we have to like, there's always the weird thing. So like those big festival performances are always super hardcore, because it's like you can come up with any crazy idea, but like you have to keep in mind the limitations and it, like of the set. Like at Opi Kopi, you've got an hour's changeover, so it's not like you can fly in a new set. Do you know what I mean? You've got to kind of like work with the limitations of what's there, and so we're constantly looking for ways to. Because it's like I'm constantly seeking to give somebody in the audience that moment I was talking about earlier, where it's like you forget to analyze things and you like pack away your analytical brain and you're just there like enjoying this thing that's happening in front of you. And if there's any conscious kind of thought, it's like a feeling of wonderment. It's like, holy shit, this is magical.
I was that person in the audience watching that. That's what you did to me.
So did it work?
Yeah, it 100% worked. Like I was just looking.
Because like quite often, like what often happens, like I've seen it so many times, like where like, because you know, I'm not always the headline artist. Like you show up and you watch somebody who gets like the headline slot and they're just fucking blurred. It looks like they're standing in their living room playing songs, and they're not using this like incredible platform, because as many limitations as there are, there's like all these like crazy opportunities to like completely like blow people's minds and give them this like special experience.
I'm not scared of anyone's imaginary friends. I'm not scared of anyone's imaginary friends. I'm not scared of anyone's imaginary friends. I'm not scared of anyone. I'm not scared of anyone. Opi Kopi, put your fucking guns up in the sky where I can see them. Opi Kopi, make some fucking noise so I know this shit is real.
I always think of like a story for the set in my head, if that makes sense, and we come up with like a rough set of themes, and and I'll think of like the various feelings that I want to induce in the audience at those moments, and it'll basically be to do with my catalog of songs at the moment that I'm feeling the strongest. I'll kind of base it around that, and we've got quite like a tight festival performance team. It hasn't happened as much recently, just because, well, I mean, not this year at all because there's no festivals, but like the festival scene's taken quite a big hit in the last 3 to 5 years. Am I wrong about that?
No, not
I think
at all.
2015 was like the last big Oppie copy. Is that going to get me beat up?
No, 2015, 2016. Because 2017 was like when the massive theft thing happened, and
and there wasn't there like a whole bunch of mud. It was like bizarre. There was like all sorts of strange
weather
shit
was
happening.
horrible, and then Rocking the Daisies completely changed its whole vibe. But I mean, that for you, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, it was just more rap. I was like, yes,
like,
there are other people who rap too. So those opportunities don't come up that often, but like when they do happen, we've got our kind of A team, and quite fundamental to that is John from Bad Weather, who does a lot of the stage design for Daisies. And I think he ended up, like, he started off as just a lighting designer, I think. And also, again, like complete like happenstance that we ended up working together. But he just like, we were looking for a lighting engineer for Oppie Copy in 2014. And I phoned up the organizers, and they put me in touch with like someone who was supposed, like, you know how it is, they've just got like a whole bunch of technicians that are running things, and they've got like this huge amount on their plates because they've got to run like, I don't know, 300 acts in a weekend or something like that. And I'm hitting this dude up going like, so dude, like, do you think you could program the set with us? And he's like, dude, I live in Joburg and I've got other shit to think about. And like, I don't really care about your 1 hour long set needing a million different lighting cues and time code and shit like that. And he John just tagged us in a post. He's like, hey guys, I did this like lighting design for Lights Out. Like, what do you think? And I hit him up, and he was like, and I'd had a couple of ideas. Like, one of the things that I've often noticed at those festival shows is the lighting on stage is always very like way too bright for people to get carried away. Like if a stage is too bright, I swear it looks like fucking someone standing in a hotel room going like, hello, how are you? I'm singing my songs. And this is like, and so I wanted somebody who could design a set that was dark and coherent. And I kind of bounced this off of him. Like, we wanted to do the cloaked figures with like spotlights on them so that it was like, so that people like would forget that they were watching a live act and it was more like watching a show. And I kind of bounced this off of him, and he was like, no problem, we can do it. And I was like, whoa, this guy's incredible.
But I remember you guys had like lightning bolts on either side of the stage.
And like,
show,
so he would bring his like knowledge set to the show design, and he worked super well with Inka, who does our visuals, and she's like a dream as well. She's like the mapping queen. And so between them, we were super covered technically, and like we very much sit down and conceptualize that shit and work it out like moment for moment. I think in 2015, did you see me fall off the stage that year?
Yes, I did.
I ate shit so hard. I remember we did a kabuki drop, like where like a screen comes down like from the top of the stage, and we had like an explosion as it happened, and then Inka was the only person to move the projection like from its original mapping that whole weekend, and there was this like Musa projection happening behind me, and the kabuki dropped, and as I turned around to jump from the speakers back onto the stage, John killed the lights, it went pitch black, and I just jumped straight into a camera track instead of onto the stage, and just ate shit down the side of the thing, wearing like absolutely no clothes as well. I think I'd just given away all the clothes I was wearing. I think I still had pants on, but otherwise I was like shoeless and topless.
You'd thrown your shoes into the crowd.
Yeah. It was such a disaster. That was a really, really magical show. Those moments really do kind of, those are like big moments in a career to have those shows come together properly. And there are like big, strong memories that drive the dream forwards, if that makes sense. It's like we can build on this thing, and you look forward to those moments very much. We had another like similarly successful show at Daisies in 2017, and to a lesser degree last year. We still had a good one last year, but like there's like looking forward to those shows is very much like an exciting part of being an artist and writing songs. It's like it's a strong vision in my mind while I'm writing quite often.
And then how do you rehearse something like that?
We We rent a rehearsal space, and it's mostly like logistical practicing with the people we involve, if that makes sense. It's like you have to basically explain the limitations to people and how it's going to work on the stage and describe it to them. Because quite often it will be people who've never been on a stage before, and then suddenly they're on this like big main stage somewhere in the middle of nowhere.
I also had no idea. It's one of the things I learned about you as well while I was prepping this. I had no idea that PHFAT opened for The Used when they came to South Africa. Oh my God.
That was definitely, that's also like one of those like oddly defining moments. Like we'd played Oppie Copy 2 days before, and when we got booked, because we got booked, I think like I can't remember, I'm not going to get into the details, but the organizers booked us. They didn't know who the international was yet. They knew it was one of the internationals who were going to be at Oppie Copy, so we thought we'd be opening for Sum 41. And then we showed up and we were opening for The Used. But we'd played Oppie Copy 2 days before, and I had an assignment due the day after. So we showed up to open for The Used at 6 p.m. on like a Tuesday afternoon or something like that. And there was just 2,000 The Used fans standing in the crowd waiting for The Used to come on. And the last thing they wanted to see was these assholes on stage making absolute racket that sounded nothing like The Used. And every time we finished a song, it would be dead quiet. There'd be 2,000 people in, what's that place? In Grand West Arena.
Oh, yeah.
And like one person would just shout, "Fuck off!" And like we had like beer cups and stuff thrown at us. It was like, but it was like a big lesson, because that was actually a moment to convert people who otherwise would have had no clue who PHFAT was. Do you know what I mean? That was like a lesson to never waste an opportunity in a way. And like, even if you piss some people off, which is, there's every chance I would have if I'd like programmed the show more carefully and not been so desperately underslept and hungover from playing Oppie Copy the night before. But like, yeah, like it was a big lesson. Like, prepare for your shows. Don't just expect it to come together. Like, take in control what you can take in control, because there's a whole bunch of stuff out of your control. But yeah, like take what you can into your own control and plan as far as you can in terms of the show.
So for somebody like who thrives off a crowd like you, well, an engaged crowd anyway, not a vibe like The Used.
Well, I mean, I would love to I still like that setting kind of like enlivens me now. Now I know it's an opportunity. So like when that happens and a crowd's not feeling it, it's a really amazing chance to be like, super present with everybody in the audience. No, like to acknowledge what's going on. Like, well, this is awkward. Let's have a conversation about this. Like that. It's actually kind of oddly exciting now. It's not as big of a problem. Like you learn to not mind being disliked in a room as much. I can't remember what you were saying. Sorry.
No, I was going to ask you what it felt like during your first show back at Platteland, right, in Pretoria? Like months after lockdown. Because obviously, being on stage is your thing. Like live shows are your thing.
It was weird. It was like, so one of the things, I've never ever forgotten lyrics on stage ever. And I realized in terms of prepping for the show, we did all our usual preparation work. And I realized on the day that I've forgotten all my lyrics because I haven't practiced them for 7 months. Like, I thought this was something that just lived in my head because I've never forgotten lyrics, but it was actually because I'm playing enough shows that I never forget my lyrics. So I had to like sit down and write out all my lyrics again so that I could remember them.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Then also like, there's also the awkwardness because for a bunch of people, it's their first time back out again. And so like to let go when you've been told not to get near people for so long is like a bit strange. And it is still strange because it's not like you can just walk in and make out with all the strangers now. Do you know what I mean? The virus is still around.
Oh, Mike.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't just walk up and hug your friends. Like, and also, do you know the other mystery that the other mind-blowing thing about this virus is every single year since I've been like a working musician, since like 2010 basically, since I've been a regular gigging musician, I've been sick like 4 times a year because I'm flying around the country. Nobody explained that wearing a face mask might have helped me not get sick. Would have been rolling with the hand sanitizer and all that. I used to get sick so often. I haven't been sick once this year, and I'm hoping it means I'm strong. But in all likelihood, like I've just been exposed to every flippin' virus every single year. Anyways, where were we?
Your immune system is so strong. It's like Corona. What?
Well, I'm not going to test that theory.
Oh my God! So one of the other things that I wanted to talk talk about. I wanted to talk about you recently deciding that you were going to demonetize your music, which basically means for people listening that people can use your music in their content creation and it won't come up as flagged on YouTube. So, for example, all of your tracks that we've been using in this podcast will not be blocked in any country around the world, which is incredible.
No, so we've released it on. I think we've released it. I don't like. I'm trying to figure out if it's also been released on Twitch, because I'm not quite sure how the distribution system works. Sometimes you can't undo that, if that makes sense. Like it's like baked into the system once it's been released. We've definitely demonetized on YouTube. I'm going to do some tests to find out where else. I don't think it's monetized on Facebook and all of those places. So basically, the logic is like we're encouraging people to use it if they want to in content creation, because a lot of the music that people have access to is super duper whack. And also because, like, quite honestly, getting stuff demonetized for individual videos is such a hack. It involves sending, involves like 3 to 4 people having to mail people back just to get a track released. So like, I'm homies with a lot of the quote unquote content creators, like your Dan Maces and your Chris Rogerses. And every time they want to use a track, I need to take 2 to 3 days to wait for everybody to confirm that it's been released before they can put it out. And these dudes are working faster than that. You know what I mean? They'll make something in the morning and it'll be up that afternoon. So I just basically, and the money generated from it isn't really, in a weird way, it's not really yours, because the work, I mean, it is, but the work that those people have created is their own, and they've used your music, but they could have used other music. And the visual side of it, like, I have no problem with generating some of the cash that gets generated in a video, but the visual side's completely discarded because of a song. So all of the earnings go to the musician whose song was used in the video. Does that make sense? And like, that doesn't make any sense, especially for these dudes who've worked their asses off. And then also, like, I don't know what the monetization does to algorithms. So basically, I just went like, fuck it, let's make this easy and release all of those claims and make it work faster. Like, that's not to say that I'm okay with people using it for advertising. I put up a whole bunch of weird rules that I hope people listen to. But yeah, I just wanted to encourage that, really.
Well, actually, what I think we should do, what we're going to do in the show notes for this podcast, I'm going to link to your social media post that you made about your quote unquote rules for using your music, because I do think that it's very interesting for people who want to know a little bit more about it. But also it's very cool. Like you were like no big brands take my music and use them.
Yeah, because if they're using it to sell stuff, that's a different story. Like the content creator thing is such a like blurred line, like, because they are making money off of it, right? But it's like, it doesn't mean I should earn all of the money that they make off of it. And quite frankly, like, I don't mind getting the shelf space. Do you know what I mean? If a Chris or a Dan uses my video, that's 150,000 sets of ears that wouldn't have otherwise heard the music. I mean, like, Casey Neistat. No one's ever told me how to pronounce his surname. He used like 3 or 4 songs on one of his videos once, and we had 1 million extra streams that month. Like, it doesn't go nowhere. Does that make sense? So yeah, I also it's flippant dope, like what people manage to get up to with it. Like somebody shot like a fishing video the other day.
Fishing video?
A fishing video. And it was like cinematic fishing. It was like slow-mo shots of the guy casting. And I was like, damn, this looks incredible. I didn't know you could make fishing look fun.
What song did they use?
They used Suede. So it was like it dropped as he was swinging his fishing rod.
Please send me the link.
High action fishing. I was like, damn, son, it's beautiful. And it's like, because people are enthusiastic about strange things. Like, not strange things, that's fucking terrible language. People are enthusiastic about unexpected things. And quite like, nothing excites me more than somebody who's got a very, very niche interest and they know the fuck out of it. Like, and you get like all these crazy opportunities. Like, had like car nerds and stuff hitting me up. Like, I don't care about cars, but I learned a bunch about it because because you watch somebody who's enthusiastic speak about it. And then to have my music and that sort of thing is cool.
Well, apart from your gear collection and your analog synths, what's like a niche thing that you have, or like a niche interest that you have?
So I'm obsessed with old German psychologists, and well, actually, I'm obsessed with most of the like major branches of psychology. I'll fall asleep thinking about like two things. I'll either fall asleep thinking about psychology, or I'll fall asleep thinking about music. Like that's the thing that like if my mind is left to wander, that's where it goes. Yeah, how in depth are we going here?
I mean, listen, I knew that I was going to learn new things about you in this podcast. We can go as deep as you want to go.
So like I've always been interested in the processes behind people making decisions. And I studied psychology. I finished my honors. I'm not going to say when, but I finished my honors, and one day I'm probably going to do my master's. When my rap career fails, which it's not going to, so I might not ever do it. But that's kind of my like,
there.
Yeah, the intention at some point, even if the rap career is going well, like in my life, I'm going to finish walking down that pathway. And yeah, I'm just fascinated with all of the major theories, especially the old German, and well, I mean Germans. I mean, I guess Jung was Swiss, but I mean, that era of psychologists in that part of Europe, they had some of the most fascinating ideas. So like, I don't know, unknown skills.
You said that lockdown was horrible for you. It was like a lonely time.
Yeah.
Lockdown for me was great. It was,
oh, really?
No, it was phenomenal. Phenomenal is a strong word, and I'll stick to that. Like, I got rid of a lot of toxic habits and behaviors. Like, I stopped smoking, and I got into a routine for the first time ever.
Oh my God, you had the exact opposite lockdown of me. I stopped exercising, started eating shit, lost all sense of routine, and lost all my purpose. It was the worst thing ever. I was like, I'm supposed to use this time to write a book, and I just want to cry.
I totally had the opposite experience to you. In fact, I was saying the other day to my housemate, I was saying, can't we just go back to level 5 when we were all in it together? Because now, like, there was something like oddly, it was like at least everybody was on the same mission for a while. Strangely
you know what
comforting.
I mean? There was like, okay, we don't need to get shit done. And it was like the first time in my life I'd felt like that. Do you know what I mean? Or like there was no point in me trying to plan shows or anything like that, or like staying busy. And it was like, but so like at first it was like this very small relief, but then immediately afterwards, like I just lost all sense of purpose and became like a weird nothing. It was so bizarre, dude. It was so crazy.
I think the reason that I had the opposite experience was because everybody went online. So I had never been busier. Like the stats on my website had never been better. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So and then we launched the podcast because we started recording in January, and then we launched the podcast end of March, beginning of April, smack bang in the middle of like level 5. So
Crazy,
we didn't, and I don't think we realized like what a success the podcast was going to be. Like, I mean, I don't know if we had done it in any other like space and time, if it would have been as successful as it is now, because like everybody was at home and like people were looking for things to do. So everyone was like, wow, streaming your podcast. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But I was very fortunate in the fact that I had all of these projects to work on.
Yeah.
I had Texx in the City. I had Texx Talks, and I could focus on things that gave me, for want of a better word, a purpose during lockdown. Yeah. I think that if I had nothing to do, I would have lost my mind.
So I had the exact opposite kind of experience. Like it was like the unsynchronicity that you had synchronicity for. Like I had been working super hard on a bunch of songs, and I had like a plan in my head for how they were going to roll out, and we'd hooked up. Basically, it looked like I was going to do 2 European tours. The day that Cyril announced that the country was locking down, I was I was packing my bags to go grab a flight to Joburg to get a visa to go visit my girlfriend in New York. So I was going to be like international man this year. And then and then it was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. So I've had to like basically completely rethink my whole like space in like my whole plan. Like it was like, and that shit doesn't just happen, you know. It's like 2 years in the making sometimes, like to pull like that the art kind of lines up to get to like to roll out at the right time in the right way. And so I guess I had to like basically like recreate my purpose, and to like refine meaning in art, and like to have an intention for where it was going to go. And I have now, like I'm probably like more engaged with art than I've been in years. I'm just worried about running out of money, which is why I'm going to mention that I'm now mastering songs for people if anybody wants me to.
Oh, really? Are you?
Yeah. I'm mixing, mastering, and I'll also record vocals for people as well if I like the song.
Okay, amazing.
Yeah. So I'm branching out, but I'm also not stopping working on music at all. I'm completely not thinking about the live experience at the moment, just because there's no real predicting. Like, do you really think we're going to be able to perform festivals this summer? Not a fucking chance.
No.
We're not coming back until like, if I was to make an educated guess, I don't see big festivals coming back till early 2022.
Really? That long?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, think about it. Even if there's a vaccine, how long does it take to redistribute to the world?
I mean,
think about how long it's taken to test like a couple million people in South Africa.
Well, and I mean, yesterday, I mean, everyone's been so preoccupied with the US elections.
Dude,
but
the most deaths in one day, the most cases in one day.
Yeah.
USA was 110,000 cases yesterday.
It's absolute madness.
It's as big of a monster as it's ever been. It's just like...
Our stats are still holding steady in South Africa.
It's because we've been flying around the country performing rap shows for so long.
Oh my God, Mike, listen.
Yeah.
I just like, this has been amazing, and I just wanted to say thank you for joining me.
Absolute pleasure. Are we wrapping up?
Yeah, we are totally wrapping up.
You can hit me up like anytime, late night calls don't bug me. Girl, you're so lovely, kinda like talking deeply with you. Kinda get lost in speaking issues. Excuse me, but I ain't gonna lie like my friends do. Shorty, I've been catching feels. You've been on my mind like mental thoughts don't end, just visions feeling way too real. I'm falling in love, can't let it control me. There's parts of my heart unsoldered inside me. Baby, it's your heart that's calling me slowly. Baby, I'm yours now, ain't nothing could slow me. The time is kinda cruel, but life ain't quite fair. The time is kinda beautiful, like fucked up nightmares. The time I was in a mood that took our feet off the brakes. Got me staring down the homies trying to sum up space. Girl, you're so gorgeous. I've been kinda clicking with your mind too, talking a bunch, finding reasons we could speak like a high school crush. You the reason I ain't sleeping enough, boo. The homies keep on asking what's up, dude. Tell them you should see it, she's beautiful, smart as hell too, it's unusual. And her tongue sharp just like mine. She get me feeling dumbstruck with that tongue. And I ain't gonna lie like my friends do, girl, you know you get me messed up. You've been on my mind like mental thoughts don't end. I'm feeling like I'm falling in love, can't let it control me. There's parts of my heart unsoldered inside me. Baby, it's your heart that's calling me slowly. Baby, I'm yours now, ain't nothing could slow me. Shouldn't be thinking about you. You've been running my nightmares lately. When we speak, time just don't move. Kinda got me feeling.
Shout out to Mike from PHFAT for joining us in studio. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Texx Talks. Be sure to check out textalks.com for more episodes. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, or listen to Texx Talks on all good streaming platforms. Also, a huge shout out to Tom's, the only music store, for being the most incredible technical supplier. From myself, Texx, our producers Jonathan Ings and Matthew Lewitz, and our research assistant Al Clapper. Catch you on the flip side.